Have you ever noticed how the world celebrates noise, loud successes, crowded rooms, constant updates? We grow up believing that if we're not surrounded by people, attention, or validation, we must be doing something wrong. But the truth is, some of the most important chapters of your life will be written in silence. There's a quiet road that few people talk about. It's the road where you walk alone, not because you're lost, but because you're finding yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. And it's in those moments of solitude, when the world goes quiet and there's no one left to clap for you, no one left to blame, that you discover who you truly are. Today, we're going to talk about the quiet strength that grows when you stop fearing solitude. About how Stoic thinkers didn't just accept loneliness. They turned it into a weapon of clarity, self-respect, and deep resilience. Because learning to walk alone isn't about being tough. It's about becoming whole. So if you've ever felt left behind, isolated, or misunderstood, stay with me. You might find that what felt like abandonment was actually an invitation to meet the strongest version of yourself. We are taught from a young age that being alone means something is wrong. Think about it. The student sitting alone at lunch? Pity. The adult dining alone at a restaurant? Awkward glances. The traveler exploring solo? Are you okay? But what if I told you that this fear, this anxiety around solitude, is not rooted in truth? It's rooted in conditioning. Seneca once said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." Seneca, write letters to Lucilius. Most people cling to the crowd because they expect happiness, security, and identity to come from others. They expect external validation to define their worth. But in doing so, they lose today. They lose themselves. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads. One path is filled with people, laughter, noise, familiar faces. The other path is empty, silent, stretching out into the unknown. Which one feels safer? For most, the crowded path feels like safety. But real danger lies there. The danger of losing your individuality, your clarity, your alignment with your deepest values. The empty path, though intimidating, holds a different kind of promise. Freedom to define yourself, space to hear your own thoughts. The rarest gift of all, the ability to live in alignment with your own soul, not someone else's expectations. Walking alone teaches you to confront yourself, your fears, your dreams, your contradictions. And from that confrontation comes a strength that cannot be faked or borrowed. The fear of solitude is an illusion because it tricks you into believing that being surrounded means being fulfilled. But fulfillment isn't found in crowds. It's found in presence, in quiet, in self-respect. When you begin to see walking alone not as abandonment, but as empowerment, you start tapping into a quiet strength that few ever experience. And that's where real transformation begins. In a noisy world, silence can feel unsettling. When you're alone, there's no one to distract you from your own thoughts, no one to entertain you, to validate you, to tell you who you are. At first, solitude feels like an empty room, but stay there long enough and you realize it's not empty. It's full of things you were too busy to notice. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Epictetus, Discourses. Mastery begins with self-awareness. And self-awareness requires silence. Picture a muddy river. When the current is strong, the water is cloudy, chaotic, unclear. But if you let the river sit still, the mud settles and clarity returns. That's what solitude does to the mind. It settles the chaos. It brings the murky waters of emotion, confusion, and fear into a crystal clear stillness. In solitude, you start noticing the fears you've been running from, the dreams you've been too busy to nurture, the values you've compromised without realizing it. You realize how often your actions were just reactions, how often your goals were borrowed from others, how much of your life was driven by noise, not inner knowing. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. That's when quiet strength begins to grow. Not the loud, flashy strength that demands attention, but the solid, unwavering presence that needs no audience. Inner calm is not built when life is easy. It's built when you sit quietly with yourself, even when the silence is uncomfortable, and refuse to abandon your soul for temporary distractions. When you master solitude, you become dangerous, not to others but to fear itself, because a person who is at peace alone cannot be manipulated by loneliness. They are free, rooted, unshakable. And in a world that constantly demands your attention, your conformity, your approval, being deeply anchored in yourself is an extraordinary power. Growth demands space. It demands discomfort. It demands periods where you outgrow people, places, and even versions of yourself you once loved. Most people want to evolve without leaving anything behind, but that's not how real transformation works. Musonius Rufus, the often overlooked teacher of Epictetus, once said, "Practice yourself, for heaven's sake, in little things, and thence proceed to greater." Musonius Rufus, Lectures. Learning to walk alone, even in small ways, is a practice for greater separations that life will inevitably demand of you. Think about nature. A snake cannot grow unless it sheds its skin. A tree cannot reach higher unless it lets go of dying branches. And you cannot become who you're meant to be if you cling to everything that once made you feel safe. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. At first, the path is wide. Friends walk beside you. The air is filled with easy laughter. But as you ascend, the trail narrows. Some companions tire, some turn back, some resent your pace. You realize that not everyone can or will climb with you. Not because they are bad people, but because your journeys are different. And if you insist on carrying everyone with you, you risk losing your own ascent. Real growth requires the courage to let separation happen naturally, without bitterness, without blame, without shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. Solitude is not just a side effect of growth, it's a catalyst. When you allow yourself to walk alone, you stop negotiating your dreams to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You stop watering yourself down to be more palatable. You start aligning every step you take with your highest values. Separation hurts, but it also purifies. It strips away the superficial. It reveals the authentic. And only in that authenticity can your true strength, your quiet, unshakable presence, be born. Remember, you are not abandoning others when you grow. You are answering the call of your own becoming. There's something magnetic about a person who is deeply comfortable walking alone. They don't beg for attention. They don't seek validation. They move through the world with quiet certainty, a presence that demands respect without ever asking for it. Marcus Aurelius captured it perfectly. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. In solitude, you stop performing. You stop building identities to please, impress, or appease others. You simply be, rooted in your values, not in the shifting opinions of the crowd. And that authenticity, it resonates louder than any words you could ever speak. Think about the leaders, artists, and thinkers you admire most. The ones who changed history. The ones whose spirits still move us. They were not the ones endlessly seeking applause. They were the ones who at some point chose the lonely road, the road of conviction over comfort. Presence is built in silence, in solitude, in the countless unseen moments when you choose alignment over approval. When you walk alone, you develop self-respect that cannot be negotiated, inner calm that isn't shaken by outside storms, a magnetic pull that draws in the right people, not because you chase, but because you simply are. You become the person who doesn't flinch when left out, who doesn't crumble when misunderstood, who doesn't change their path to gain fleeting applause. And paradoxically, the world notices, not because you demanded it, but because true presence is rare. And in a world addicted to noise, authenticity echoes like thunder. But here's the thing, you can't fake this presence. It's not an act. It's the natural outcome of walking the lonely paths, facing yourself, and choosing integrity over imitation. So when life invites you into solitude, don't resist it, embrace it, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because those who master walking alone, master the art of walking anywhere. It's easy to romanticize solitude, but the reality? Walking alone demands courage. It demands sitting with doubts that used to be drowned out by conversation. It demands facing fears that once hid behind social validation. It demands trusting your inner compass when there's no one else clapping, guiding, or approving. Seneca offers us timeless advice. If you really want to escape the things that harass you, what you're needing is not to be in a different place, but to be a different person. Seneca, Letters to Lucilius. The courage to walk alone isn't about abandoning the world. It's about transforming yourself so profoundly that you no longer need the world to tell you who you are. Here's how to begin cultivating that courage. 1. Practice small acts of independence. Start simple. Eat alone without reaching for your phone. Take a walk without music or podcasts. Sit quietly and just be. Every small act builds a deeper familiarity with your own presence. 2. Align your actions with your values. When you know what you stand for, loneliness loses its sting. Make decisions based on your principles, not on fear of disapproval. Ask yourself daily, am I living true to what I believe, even if no one notices? 3. Welcome, not fear, discomfort. Solitude will surface insecurities you didn't know you had. That's not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're healing. Instead of fleeing discomfort, sit with it. Breathe into it. Let it teach you where you still cling, where you still doubt, where you still seek outside permission. 4. Reframe rejection. Not everyone will understand your journey. Some will misinterpret it. Some will criticize it. Let them. Their rejection is not a reflection of your path's worth. It's simply confirmation that you're forging a road not everyone is brave enough to walk. 5. Trust the quiet growth. The most powerful transformations are invisible at first. Roots grow deep before they break through the soil. Your solitude is not stagnation, it's foundation building. In time, what once felt like loneliness will reveal itself as liberation. Walking alone isn't about being separate forever. It's about becoming whole enough that when you choose connection, it's from strength, not from need. And that changes everything. One of the greatest surprises about learning to walk alone is this: you don't stay alone forever. At first, solitude feels like exile, a cold, wide space where the familiar has fallen away. You may wonder if you'll ever find people who truly see you, not for what you offer, not for how you fit into their expectations, but for who you are at your core. And then, without warning, it happens. New connections form, quieter, deeper, more aligned. Not because you chased them, but because your solitude refined you into someone worth finding. As the Stoics understood so well, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Seneca, Letters to Lucilius. When you walk alone, you stop settling for shallow validation. You stop tolerating half-hearted connections. You become so anchored in self-respect that only those who match your quiet strength feel drawn to you. Imagine lighting a fire in a vast, dark wilderness. At first, you stand alone. But over time, those seeking warmth, true warmth, not the flickering glow of empty approval, will find you. They'll find you not because you begged, performed, or compromised, but because your presence, honest, resilient, deeply rooted, speaks louder than any words ever could. And these connections, rare and precious, are built not on dependency, but on mutual respect. Not on neediness, but on shared values. Not on fear of loneliness, but on celebration of authenticity. Here's the paradox. When you need people the least, you attract the best. Because desperation repels. But quiet confidence, the kind born from walking alone, is magnetic. And so the solitude that once felt like a punishment reveals itself as a filter. A sacred process that clears away the noise and leaves only the true, the good, the enduring. You realize you never lost anything worth keeping. You simply made room for what was always meant to find you. In the end, solitude isn't about loneliness. It's about sovereignty. It's about reaching a point where your happiness, your peace, and your purpose are not tethered to anyone else's approval or attention. It's about living so aligned with your values that even if the world turns silent, your spirit roars quietly within. Epictetus said it best: seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. Epictetus. Enchiridion, walking alone, teaches you the art of surrender, not in weakness, but in power. You no longer fight to force people to stay. You no longer betray your soul to avoid discomfort. You no longer fear the silence because you've learned that within it lies your truest voice. Here's what you discover when you embrace walking alone. You don't lose people, you lose illusions. You don't lose safety, you lose dependence. You don't lose love, you lose the need to beg for it. And what you gain is priceless. Quiet strength that anchors you through every storm. Inner calm that shields you from the chaos of the world. Self-respect that glows quietly, unmistakably in every step you take. You become the kind of person who doesn't just survive solitude, you thrive in it. You turn it into a sanctuary, a forge, a homecoming. So if life ever places you on a path where you must walk alone, don't resist it. Don't rush to fill the silence with noise or the space with company. Instead, pause, breathe, walk slowly, and trust that every step you take is shaping you into the person you were always meant to become. Because in the end, the road walked alone is the road that leads you home, not to a place, not to a person, but to yourself. And there, you are unshakable.